What's happening, everybody? So in a previous video, I was discussing the subscription-based performance upgrades that were proposed by Stellantis for their upcoming Ram and Banshee EVs. And part of what I was discussing when I was talking about those subscription-based performance upgrades was how off-putting that was and will be to some buyers of those cars. But in most of my videos, I will always ask for folks to post up their comments and let me know what they think. Basically, asking for a little bit of interaction and looking for different points of view. And in this case, El Diablo RT put a brilliant point out for discussion. In essence, these cars aren't going to be purchased, or the vast majority of them may not be purchased. Better the point, it's more in lockstep because of the cost of these vehicles with the mindset of leasing. And if you're leasing a vehicle, all you're doing is you are, in essence, subscribing to the purchase of the time for that car, not the car itself. And if you're basically treating the vehicle as a service anyway, what's the difference between having the car as a lease and then leasing a power upgrade for a small amount of time or for a purchase amount to make it a permanent feature in the car? And it works a little bit with the law of marginal utility for the manufacturer. Let's say that they make half twin motor, half four motor Banshees. Well, if they're going to be leasing 80% of those cars for reasons, then that would mean that you could get into one of those cars for, instead of an amount of money in terms of a purchase price, let's say that your lease for a twin motor would be $500 a month and the lease for a four motor could be $650. Well, that's great. And they're going to be quick from the factory just in their base forms. But if they can make those cars durable enough to handle, instead of say 500 horsepower or 650 horsepower, let's say the twin motor can now handle 650 horsepower and the four motor can handle 800. Just showing out for numbers right now. The car is durable enough to handle it, but it's underpowered from the factory. That may aid in durability, long-term reliability, etc. And if somebody wants to lease or subscribe to a power output enhancement, well, then they could do that and have the experience of having the more powerful car without the upfront price of an initial purchase. The same way that you would have to step up from an RT to a Scat Pack, or from a Scat Pack to one of the Hellcat variants. This is an opportunity for you to be able to enjoy those types of performance experiences without a long-term financial investment. Sounds pretty good. And really, it kind of does work with a younger generation. Again, understanding that most folks nowadays are just looking at the car as a convenient conveyance. And as that, they don't look at it from the point of view of an old school musclehead. They're not looking at it from somebody that's going to want to buy one of these cars and work on it and be a part of it and any of that. They're not doing that. They're looking at it as technology. And in this case, you can just bump up the power and not have any long-term investments. It's basically like owning a real-life video game. Also, this is another point that I wanted to kind of talk about. And not that this is internal combustion versus EV or anything like that, but think of how much of a difference that there is from just tuning the EV at this point. I want you to consider a complaint that is very often the case with internal combustion engines, where people will say, well, I'll talk about Mopars, okay? People will say, well, the 392 just doesn't react to a cam the way that the LS does, or a tune doesn't really get you that much power. A tune, by the way, that'll cost you somewhere around $1,500. But getting back to the point, in this case, you could go from, again, just for purposes of conversation, for a twin motor, two-wheel drive Banshee could be a 500 horsepower car, but with this tune, now it's 650 horsepower. That's in essence like putting a supercharger on a 392 Scat Pack. Or let's say it's a Ford motor. It comes from the factory with, who knows, 650 horsepower. But with this new tune, it makes 850 horsepower. Again, it would be like putting pulleys and a tune and E85 and everything else on that car. You could have all the benefits of it for a weekend, and then you kind of just let it go. You turn it back in, so to speak. So that's why it's so good. That's why it is such a strong play for folks that are looking to get into something that is a performance variant of a car without having to deal with any liability long term. So, El Diablo RT, thank you very much for the comment. I definitely appreciate it. Definitely got me to thinking about the topic a little bit differently. I know there's a lot of you guys out there that are going to say that you don't like the idea, that you think that it's an invasion, that you think that it's something that you're not really going to be into. And I completely understand that. And coming from a more traditional car purchasing experience-minded type of guy, I can completely be on board and back up and support that mindset. But for the folks that are up and coming, and for the mindset of these newer buyers, this might be right up their alley. And it might be the exact thing that Mopar will need to do to stay relevant in the new e-muscle world that we're all going to be living in. These leased cars with leased hot rod upgrade packages might not be all that bad when you think about it. Anyway, as always, post up your comments. Let me know what you think. And that's a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Adios.